Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Chef McKay's Budget Gourmet. Tonight, as promised, we'll be doing salmon and a little bit of chocolate. More specifically, we'll be doing lime and ginger salmon fillets, and we'll be doing orange vanilla fudge. So the first part of this stream will hold true to my desire to keep the recipes on this stream under, at a reasonable budget. The fudge, unfortunately, due to the nature of fudge, is a little bit more expensive, but hey, I said I'd do chocolate, so I'm going to do chocolate. Welcome, welcome. So, for starters, we've gone ahead and preheated our oven to 465 Fahrenheit. The reason why is that's the temperature we'll be cooking our salmon at for the majority of its cooking time. But for starters, we're going to go ahead and start making the marinade for the salmon. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to add in some soy sauce, coconut aminos, soy aminos, any of those will work. I happen to have some coconut aminos on hand, but soy sauce works just as well. I personally don't notice a discrepancy in the flavor. That could just be me. Then you're going to want to add some lime juice. 100%, you don't want to have a sweetened cocktail lime juice. If you wanted a sweeter marinade, I suppose you could, but I personally prefer to keep things undersweet. And then you're going to want to get some ground ginger or fresh grated ginger. Since we're trying to stay at a budget, the budget this month was $35. I will be using ground ginger. I personally prefer fresh ginger, but ground ginger works just as well. Then you're going to want to take 1 clove of garlic and mince it. If you can mince by knife, I happen to have this fancy garlic mincer that makes it super easy. So go ahead and give that a nice squeeze and get that garlic all into the marinade. Making sure that you bust it up. And you're going to want to stir that up just a little bit. You don't really need to over stir it. But there's your marinade. Very simple. 4 ingredients. A little bit of lime juice, a little bit of soy sauce, coconut aminos, or soy aminos, and some ground ginger. Very simple. Then you're going to want to take your salmon fillets and get them in there. You may need to add a little bit more fluid. Looks like I'm going to have to fully cover all 3 salmon fillets. This is not something I would overly recommend you try to meal prep with. It is a great meal, but it's not exactly ideal for meal prep. As stated earlier, or in an earlier episode, the fish doesn't exactly agree with being refrigerated. So you want to get a nice smooth coating of your marinade over your meat, so that you don't have pockets of unmarinated meat. I'm going to slow down a little bit. So you're going to want to marinate your salmon for about 30 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and wherever I sat my phone, there it is. I'm going to to start a timer for 30 minutes. That way I know when to move on to the next step with the salmon. After that, I'll be washing my hands. And I'll give you a nice, quick, better view. And we'll be moving on to starting the fudge. Alright, so. Oops, I gotta get one more thing. So, the fudge recipe we'll be using today is, despite the fact that it's a little over budget, fairly easy to pull off. And we'll go ahead and move the camera to a better position for the fudge. Right. So, First step with the fudge is you're going to want to get a bar of baker's chocolate and you're going to want to crush it up. Get it nice and not obliterated, but you want to make sure that you have pieces that will melt a little bit easier. It can help to cut it up, but it is entirely possible to do this step with just your hands. Though for the sake of YouTube, I will be cutting it up. And the reason you want it to be nice and easy to melt is you don't want to accidentally burn your fudge. That's a hard lesson to learn. If you melt chocolate too quickly or too hot, it won't just melt, it'll scald and you'll have a really, really unpleasant flavor to your fudge. So this recipe calls for 4 ounces of fudge, which just so happens to be the size, or the whole weight of the baking chocolate I bought. So that was not coincidence, that was intentional. Fudge is one of those things I love making. So, such a simple yet delicious recipe for dessert. And there's so many things you can do with it. You can add candy, candied fruits, candied ginger, all sorts of flavors. I used to work at Cabela's before I got where I am now, years and years ago. If any of you have ever been to Cabela's, they have quite the fudge selection that they make every day. And I'm pretty sure that's how I got fat the first time. I just sneak up there when I was on break or on lunch, buy some fudge and stuff my face to feel less bad about myself. But hey, that's all in the past now. So how's everyone's month going? Wow, my month's been interesting and hectic. Can't wait for 2020 to be over, right? Good to hear. I'd hope everyone's month has been, at the very least, a positive one. The world's not so black and white that we can't all look on the bright side, right? So, the fudge I am doing today, the flavor profile at the very least, is partially influenced by just what I've been craving, but that sounds like a very complicated way to watch a YouTube stream. I've been craving oranges all month. I don't know why. And, you know, vanilla is just such a base flavor for chocolate that it's kind of, you know, it would be a sin to not have vanilla. Also, the recipe kind of makes it very abundantly clear that you need to have vanilla. I guess it might provide some fluids. Alright, so there's all our chocolate, nice and chunked up and easier to melt. I don't have it on heat just yet. We're going to make sure we add in the rest of the ingredients first. I don't have Chromecast. I don't have really a TV. I genuinely prefer not to. Alright, so the next thing you're going to want to add is 1/3 cup of a thick oil. Olive oil is not really a good option for this one. You want a high heat, very thick oil. Coconut oil, yes, that is my oven. I can turn that off if it's too annoying. I'll go ahead and shut it off for now. It'll hold most of its heat until we're ready to start cooking. Other than the humming from the fan on the oven, how's the audio quality doing this evening? I know we've had issues with that in the past. Alright, well, with so you want to add in all your ingredients. You want to melt this all at once. So it is 1/3 cup of a thick oil, typically either coconut oil, cocoa butter, or I'm using avocado oil tonight because it's nice and thick and has a high smoke point. Then this recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of almond butter. No, the fan will continue to stay engaged as long as the oven's over 400 degrees. It's a nice feature when you're not trying to stream. My computer's fan hasn't engaged yet. So 1/4 cup. And 2. All right, I'll speak up. Am I coming across loud enough? At the very least, hopefully at least I've got that right. So then you want to add 1/3 cup of powdered sugar, or whatever your sweetener of choice is. You want it powdered, not granular. Mostly because it helps dissolve it a lot faster. So you're not having to sit there struggling. With weird patches in your ingredients to get everything nice and sweet. All right, so one-third cup sweetener of choice into the mixture, as long as it's powdered. I don't have the measurements on hand for what you'd want to do with non-powdered sugar or sweetener of your choice, but I would assume for the most part they're roughly similar. There's not too much of a... Yes, there. So when this video propagates and gets properly uploaded to YouTube, I have a website that I will be posting all of the recipes used today online with step-by-step instructions and yeah, everything you'll need to make it yourself, except for the ingredients. I'm sorry, I don't have that ability yet. Get on it, science. So next we need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, alcohol-based. That's something a lot of people don't know, that most of the extracts you can buy at the store are alcohol-based. I don't know why. I guess it helps keep the flavor suspended and more in a more concentrate. But that is something that I did not know until I started cooking with the military. That all these extracts that I love to cook with are well, based on alcohol. And then for this recipe, I will be using 1.5 teaspoons of alcohol-based orange extract. The recipe that I'm pulling this from says that it would be great with peppermint extract, licorice extract, or rather anise extract, which is licorice's flavor. And pretty much any natural extract you can buy at the grocery store. But I'm doing orange today because I really have been craving orange anything all month long. So, then you want a dash of salt, which for this, forgot one thing. Just a moment, I'll be right back. Alright, sorry about that. 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. Or sorry, not tablespoons, teaspoons. 2 teaspoons of cocoa powder. It says to use just regular dark. I don't have regular dark on hand, I just have special dark. So, and last, but certainly not least, a pinch of salt. And I said I would introduce one of my favorite dessert salts to cook with, which is this lovely Icelandic licorice salt. It has such a wonderful, wonderful scent. If you're not a fan of licorice, don't worry. This is not a requirement for this recipe. This is just me being fancy for my sake. So, pinch and a half of Icelandic licorice salt. Alright, then, once you get all your ingredients settled in, you're going to want to get it on low heat. You don't want, and you want to stir it constantly so that you don't, scald the cocoa or the chocolate, because that is just the worst way to have fudge. It's scalded chocolate. I know some people like crispy brownies. I personally like when they're crispy on the outside but nice and moist on the inside. But fudge is one of those things you don't want to have scalded or too crispy. So I am on as low a heat as I can go without not letting it. There's the mixture. Doesn't look quite so appetizing yet, but we'll get there eventually. Alright, so low heat so that you don't scald it. If you have the availability to do so, double boiling is a good way to avoid scalding your chocolate. That's where you have one pot with water in it, and you set a smaller pot on top of that pot, but you don't want them like some random pot. They're designed to nest inside of each other like a Russian nesting doll, so that the boiling water heats up the second pot, which has your chocolate in it. They're sometimes called fondue pots. I happen to have one, but most people don't, and I'm showing you a way that you could do this recipe at home without having to buy any special equipment. Which is, you know, always nice. Nothing aggravates me more than seeing a recipe that says, oh, you must buy this one specific tool that you will never use on any other recipe again. That's why I don't really cook with sous vide. I know most people who've cooked with it swear by it, but well, I don't. So our salmon has about 10 minutes left on it before it's ready to go back into the oven. And our fudge is slowly starting to turn into a nice big puddle. Still has some solid chunks in it, but we're not too worried about that. We're still not to the point where the pan is going to scald the chocolate. I'm going to kick the oven back on to keep it at that heat. That is 465. That seems hot. Don't worry, it is extremely hot, but you're only leaving your salmon in there for about 10 minutes. Salmon fillets, when they're nice and thin, are one of those things that cooks so incredibly fast that it's not even funny. They also they also defrost incredibly fast, which is good. All right. That smells good. So I will not be eating all of this tonight. Alright, so once our fudge is nice and smooth and liquidy, and we've got all the big chunks out of it, and it's a nice smooth consistency, we'll be putting it into this pan and putting it in the fridge. We will actually be putting a little bit of parchment paper at the bottom of this pan, or this glass dish rather, to help get the there goes the train of thought. Get the fudge out when it's cool. So parchment paper is one of those things that's so incredibly useful that it would be insane to not have it in your kitchen. It's great for baking. Not exactly ideal for streaming though, because it is incredibly loud. Alright, so our fudge is now nice and smooth. And ready to go in. So, I'm going to alter that way. Make sure. Alright. Gonna turn off the heat. Actually, that is a bad camera angle. I'm gonna move it back here. I'm gonna move all this stuff out of the way. Alright. Fuck it. I'll do something I don't ever do. I'm going to mix parchment. Fuck it. I'll just use some cooking spray. Parchment paper and cooking spray are fairly interchangeable. So just a very, 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 very light layer. You don't want your fudge swimming in oil. You just want it to not stick to the pan so painfully. So get that in there. Oven's back up to temperature. I'm going to grab a different tool. Alright, so we're going to get this in here and we're going to spread it out evenly so that it cools evenly. That, and you don't want just a giant, I mean, I totally would go for a giant amount of fudge, but that's me. That's my inner fat kid screaming at me. There will be, unfortunately, due to how long it takes to cool fudge properly, I won't be able to show the finished product for the fudge. It takes about 2 hours to properly cool fudge down to a workable temperature, at least according to this recipe. But I have shown this recipe, and I've shown it's super easy. You don't need any special equipment, just some run-of-the-mill pots, pans, and spatulas. But that's the fudge. And yes, there will be a full recipe for this will be posted on chefmckay.com probably in about 2 hours. And I'll post there will be a link posted with images of the finished product, and yeah, so everything that you see here is going to be available online as soon as possible. I know I kind of dropped the ball on that one last time. What with the chicken or the bacon wrapped chicken parcels. So, all right. It's always so tempting to look at the spatula clean. We're better than that. All right, so we're gonna get our dishes, our fudgy dishes, out of the way. We're gonna throw a lid on, and we're gonna put this in the fridge for 2 hours. You could probably throw it in the freezer to cool it off a lot quicker, but as the old adage says, good things come to those who wait. So, now that our fudge is all nice and buttoned up and ready to go, we're going to move back to the salmon. So, for those of you who weren't keeping time, that entire fudge recipe took 29 minutes, which is a little over what the actual recipe author for that recipe quoted me. But hey, you know, homemade fudge in less than 30 minutes. Perfect for holidays. Well, we got a little bit of time while I get everything buttoned up and out of the way. What's everybody's favorite type of fudge? Mine is peppermint bark fudge, so we're the kind that has the candy canes crushed up on top. While I wait for your answers, I'm going to keep cleaning up. And there's my timer for the salmon. All right. So, for the salmon, once you've had plenty of time to marinate your salmon in your very simple marinade, you're just going to give me just a second to wash my hands so I don't accidentally get some chocolate. Mint is a good one. Dark chocolate fudge or just dark fudge. I like all fudge. Oh yeah, it gives me a heart attack anytime it goes off. That's why I don't normally use that timer. Alright, so it is an alarm from one of the Star Treks. Alright, so once you get... Alright, so back to the salmon. You've got your salmon fillets all nice and marinated in lime juice, soy sauce, coconut aminos, or soy aminos. There's always different types of fudge. There's never just one type of fudge. Alright, so anyway, once you have your salmon fillets out of your marinade, you're going to get rid of that bowl. Don't do the home cooking mistake of reusing your marinade as... Oh no, I know who both of these people are. Lawrence is a buddy of mine, and I know who Ryan is, so we're not really being invaded. But hey, the more the merrier, right? I mean, it's no fun if I'm just cooking for myself, right? There's no point in me cooking for just myself. All right, so anyway, once you have your marinated fillets laid out nicely on your tray, you're gonna want to add a little bit of salt. Once again, we are using that Icelandic lava salt that I can't stop raving about, just because I just love the flavor and the color. Just a little pinch of that, not enough that we're drowning the fillets in salt, because you know, we're not trying to make salmon jerky here, even though I have totally made that before. Oh, because of the alarm. Oh. Oh, that's funny. All right, so put a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper on your salmon. A lot of people like to put dill on salmon. I personally love dill on certain types of salmon, but on these particular fillets, I don't particularly recommend the dill. Dill does not exactly mesh well, in my opinion, with ginger. Alright, so anyway, we've got our salmon fillets all nice and pretty with salt, pepper, and the marinade that they've been soaking in for the last half hour. We're going to put them in the oven for 8 minutes. And it is 8 minutes because the oven is so damn hot and these fillets are not that thick. So in they go. Alright, so while we wait for that, we're going to clean up a little bit so that the final cleanup is a lot easier. If any of you have questions, comments, or concerns about tonight's meal, feel free to ask. The total cost of tonight's meal was, or for the salmon at least, the fudge obviously racked up. Salmon fudge pickle. No, that really doesn't sound good at all. There's not a lot of desserts that are chocolatey that go very well with salmon, in my opinion. Salmon's more of a fruity dessert, to me, at least. I know some people disagree and say, "Oh, well, I'm not into the whole wine pairing kind of thing. For me, food is based very heavily on my opinion." And in my opinion, salmon is one of those things that just doesn't do well with chocolate as a dessert. But, you know, I'm a big fan of like lemon pie or there's a recipe I thought about making, a lemon cream salmon fillets. It required a little bit more, and it ended up pushing our cost over the budget I had set. So I chose not to do it. I do want to try to stay at or under budget. So yeah, the total cost of this meal, at least the salmon fillet part, is about $20 to get all the ingredients. The salmon fillets themselves were probably the biggest expense for me. I'm not exactly coastal, so salmon and seafood in general are just not super readily available. But worth it in my opinion. Salmon is one of those meats that I do love. So while we've got some time cooking, this recipe, each fillet technically has the ability to feed 2 people, though it is recommended that, or I at least recommend that you give a full fillet. There's 6 ounce, I had 2 6-ounce and 1 8-ounce fillet. Oh, that's awesome. I'd love to have some fresh caught salmon. I used to fish a lot. Let me tell you, I love fresh caught trout. It's not exactly salmon, but I think good rainbow trout has such a fantastic flavor to it that it's worth it. But yeah, so each fillet will serve 1 person. I made 3 fillets. The marinade is good up for up to 4 fillets itself before you need to either cycle it out or remake it or add in certain ingredients to re-strengthen it. If you are doing small portions because you're on a diet or insert other reasons, each 8-ounce portion can serve as a 4-ounce portion, and if you had 4 8-ounce portions, you could serve 8 people. This particular meal goes fantastic on a bed of rice. Salmon is one of those dishes that constantly goes well with asparagus, no matter what you serve or what flavor you're doing. I think asparagus is one of those vegetables that just complements salmon perfectly. But other vegetables that are great for salmon are Brussels sprouts and kale salad would be good with it too. So we're coming up on 2 minutes left on the recipe, or 2 minutes left on the salmon rather. Once it's done, we'll pull it out, take a quick look, I'll give it a quick nibble, and then I'll put it to the polls what I should do for next stream. Cauliflower rice is a good option. Gives you the rice texture without staying the flavor. If you're just trying to add a starch, potatoes are another good one. Potatoes are also one of those meal items that basically can be turned into anything. Because they are one of those meals that just takes on the recipe of whatever, or takes on the flavor of whatever recipe you're adding into it. Ooh, and there's our timer for the salmon. Alright, so salmon is mostly done, as you can see, but it does require a little bit more time to give it that nice, crispy texture that I do love on this recipe. So we will be cranking the oven up to a high broil for about 2 minutes. You don't want to do too long and risk absolutely drying it out or scorching it. So just a little bit of a pinch to the broil will help extend or rather give it a nice interesting texture on the exterior while keeping the interior of the salmon nice and crispy. So yeah. Any questions so far? Comments? Or do you want to sit here and chat about what we should do for next stream, which, if I keep my bi-weekly schedule, will be December 5th. Yeah, so I'm going to be doing this again on December 5th, skipping Thanksgiving. I will be happy to take requests, as long as it doesn't fall into beef. I can't do beef. So, fun fact, I actually prefer electric stoves. I feel they give a more even... it helps give me time. If this starts taking off and gets super popular, I might switch it to weekly. But right now, I'm not doing this as my job. I'm doing this just for fun, for the hell of it. So, constantly buying groceries for a stream that I might, that I'm just doing for fun, is a little cost intensive, especially with how crazy 2020's been. And now our Alright, here we are. Our salmon fillets are fully cooked. This one looks kind of weird because the lava salt gave it that really black color, but let me plate one of them. All right. So here we have our 8-ounce lime and ginger salmon fillet. As I said before, these pair fantastically with rice and are super easy. So few ingredients. Easy to make, and you get this lovely fully cooked salmon color on the inside. Perfection. So for the next 5, 6, or 7 minutes, I'd be happy to discuss next stream's menu. If there's anything that you have all wanted to see cooked or have wanted to try yourselves but have been intimidated away from because of perceived complexity of the menu or the recipe or by just the sheer cost. Salmon was one of those ingredients when I first started getting big into cooking that I was under the impression was so expensive that I'd never be able to afford. It is delicious. Nice and crispy on the outside, but nice and, I won't say juicy because salmon really isn't juicy, but it's nice and smooth on the inside. And I really wish YouTube would hurry up and develop the technology to let me send this across the airwaves so that everybody could try it. If only, if only. So, next stream, I was thinking of doing a ham of some kind. Not a big ham, probably something nice and simple. But taste-o-vision. So I'm not doing a Thanksgiving one. We're skipping Thanksgiving. I totally would do a roast turkey if I had access to this whole kitchen for 4 hours. Unfortunately, we don't really have that time. But I'm thinking of. I had it pulled up. Hold on. No. So I'm thinking of upping the budget to about $50, but I'm going to make it a bulk feeding, so 8 people or more comfortably fed. Yes, here it is. Makes 10 servings, and I know I can get all but the ham itself. Actually, I have everything but the ham itself on hand, so I could totally do this recipe for under $50. And it's a great holiday ham recipe. I'm not doing the Christmas episode next, because if I keep to my schedule, I will actually be doing a stream. Four days before Christmas. Sorry, 5 days before Christmas Eve. And I will go all out for that stream. That way we can get more out of the Christmas stream. Probably do $100 budget for that one and do a full course meal. Vegetable, meat, dessert, salad, and probably rolls. I might get help for that one. So for just to build up a little bit of excitement in the next stream, the ham I'm doing, it's called a ginger spiced pork roast. So it's not really a ham, it's more of a pork roast, but I think they are fantastic and delicious anyway, and they are quite filling. What would I recommend as a party food? You won't see me for New Year's? Hold on, I gotta look ahead on my schedule. I could up, you know what? I will up my stream that week a couple days so that I can do one on New Year's Eve before. I'll probably do it nice and early in the day. I'll probably start that stream around noon on December 31st. And I will show some party meals, let's see, good party foods. I like jalapeno poppers, meatballs, Swedish meatballs, chicken meatballs, pork meatballs, Czech meatballs, bacon wrapped, Brussels sprouts are a fun one. Fondue is a fun one, time consuming though. And you need some specialized equipment for fondue. Party foods really, if it wasn't for, COVID, I would recommend finger foods. Stuff that is easy to throw on a plate, forget about, and then eat. And there's a lot you can do with party foods. My jalapeno poppers it's the jalapeno with, instead of cream cheese and bacon, they're ricotta cheese, which is a little bit more expensive, but I think it has a better flavor to it, and Gruyere cheese mixed into there, wrapped with bacon, obviously. If you're not into spicy food, stuffed bell peppers are a good party food. You don't have to stuff them with meat. You can stuff them with refried beans and cheese. Nachos, that's a fun one for if you can get some crazy effort into your nachos. Nachos are a fantastic party food. So are street tacos. I'm gonna have to start planning that, because if I'm gonna do New Year's stream, I'm gonna have to really plan. Now you got me thinking. So, $50 for the budget next week. Does that sound good for feeding 10 people? Because that's what that recipe will feed. Or not next week, but in 2 weeks. The 5th of December. For a holiday pork roast, $50. Not a bad price, right? Yeah, street tacos are fantastic. Well, there goes the dog. But yeah, so I think that's about it for this week. If anybody has anything else they'd like to bring up, ask, or shoot my way, I'll open it up for conversation for about 4 minutes. So it's So 4 minutes. If there's anything you guys want to ask, questions about shopping, questions about cooking, questions about baking. I figured it was you. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Unless everybody has any questions or suggestions for a future episode / stream, because I love getting recipes. And I love looking at recipes I've never seen. Oh, that reminds me. I said I would do one of my recipes that I've come up with. I will do that next stream. It's one I completely came up with, so because I've scoured the internet looking to make sure that I didn't accidentally recreate someone. Yeah, he's a little puppy and he gets uppity. But yes, so next stream, aside from the ginger pork roast, I will be doing the Mojave cream pie, which is a recipe of my own creation. Well, that's why I'm doing these streams, Ryan. That way we can get everybody, or we can try to show people that cooking things that taste fantastic and good does not have to be, the wizarding world of Gordon Ramsay. As much as I have respect for that man, some of the recipes he's come up with or that I've seen him prepare on camera are absolutely insane. The whole point of these streams is to show that you can make good food on a budget very quickly. Nice, short, simple. He's playing with the phone, and there he just went outside. But yeah, so these streams, all the food I'm doing, I'm trying to stay under very set budgets. I don't exactly have endless money swimming out of my pockets, so it's food that I would make myself. Not that I wouldn't make myself fancy, expensive food if I didn't have the. Oh, he's a very good people person when he's not in the kitchen. I haven't met him. I've seen him do shows where he's been in charity, and he seems like an incredibly nice individual.
It's just when you do something that's unsafe in the kitchen or that is blatantly wrong in the kitchen that he will jump down your throat. Anyway, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna cut the stream here and look out for chefmckay.com. I will have the recipes and the finished product pictures displayed. Not only for the salmon, but for the fudge as well. It's been fun, guys. I love doing these streams. It's nice to put a little bit of a show off for other people. But if there's no other questions, comments, or concerns, you all have a great night. It should be up in about an hour.